Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Alpha 3.17 is planned to get the first true implementation of the Quanta system. It's the start of the dynamic universe, and it ties into many things. Today I wanted to talk about exactly what is the Quanta system, should we even be calling it that, why is it important, what we're getting with Alpha 3.17, and what lies beyond. So, what is the Quanta system? What is Quanta? What are these things? So the Quanta system is not really the name we should be using for what we're getting here. Quanta is just part of it. The name we should be using is the Dynamic Universe Simulation or the Quantum System. They're better names for it. The system dynamically changes and affects all aspects of the game's economy, mission generation, encounters, as well as NPC physicalization eventually, tracking of NPCs and probability volumes, and what's happening in the game world. But it is supposed to both simulate and physicalize when necessary. So let's talk about the importance of Quanta. Quanta are part of this system. They're basically lightweight NPCs that are tracked to varying degrees, as well as the data relating to probability volumes that help generate encounters and what you'll see around the verse. So let me give you an example of probability volumes. You'll have an area of space that you're traveling through. There are lots of security forces in this area, and there's lots of successful bounty hunting missions that are being completed by players. This means you're less likely to see criminals or pirates because of the amount of security forces, because of the amount of missions they're getting done that sort of kill or take out criminals. But this is going to mean that you're much more likely to see security forces potentially stop you, scan you, or check you for certain goods or whatever based on what's going on in that area. So if an area has a newly discovered ore vein that is then known about, this will attract players, but also NPCs and Quanta to mine that area. This in turn will have pirate Quanta attacking those miners. Then security forces will, after a little while, respond to that. So there's a bit of lagged time here. So this is all simulated in the background, and probability volumes are generated going, this is the likelihood that you're going to have this encounter with these type of forces. Or that a mission will be generated, a sort of service beacon will be generated based on these particular sets of data. So Quanta are basically the NPCs and the NPC data that's tracked to help build this dynamic universe simulation. But it's a lot of other things as well, and we'll get into that. So what are we getting in Alpha 3.17? So in Alpha 3.17, we're getting the start of these Quanta and some of these sort of probability volumes and stats being tracked. So the prices of quantum and hydrogen fuel will be controlled by the system, as will the costs of repair. So the quantum system will handle all of this. So this is going to be affected by certain things, supply and demand, but also activity in an area. If it's busier, the higher the cost of fuel will go. If there's a lot of combat, the sort of higher the prices of repair will go as well. This is compounded by the system that's also dealing with NPC service beacons and tracking security forces, pirates, freighters, and miners. So service beacons will appropriately reflect the state of the balance between all of those forces, security versus pirates versus opportunity to attack tasty civilians. Player activity like dealing with the pirates will make them less likely to turn up, as some are dead and some don't want to then risk fighting after a lot of them have been wiped out. But if players are very active in mining in an area, then there's likely to be more pirates around there, because they're also going to be simulating lots more NPCs mining around that area too, and then being targeted. So this is supposed to be tracked in a dozen or so locations in 3.17. However, the end goal is it will be tracked everywhere and then tied into a huge amount more, not just the quantum and hydrogen fuel and the cost of repair, but everything in the game. Every single item and a material that's used to build those items will drive the economy, will drive NPCs to do certain jobs and certain roles and attack or defend or do industrial roles or live their best life in one of many, many different ways. So far beyond 3.17, what is this going to evolve into? So the system will eventually enable individual NPCs to become tracked to a much greater degree and for them to become much more important to the simulation. So let me give you an example. You have a pirate that gets encountered by a player as part of a bounty hunt, but that pirate gets away. And you saw when you were sort of scanning them, you saw that they had killed a load of other ships and whatever, and their bounty's a certain amount. The quantum system can then track that Quanta and make it more important. It can go, well, actually, there's information about this target now, and it's got this amount of money. Players sort of technically still tracking them and trying to find them, they're actually accruing a higher level of bounty because they're still killing ships. They're still taking out miners. They're going about their life still. The system will also track that NPCs needing to land, repair, rearm, and rest. So a prospective bounty hunter could maybe find him at Grimhex when he's out of his ship. But not all NPCs are tracked to this level. It's only when they are needed to be tracked to that level that they will be. And they're obviously only physicalized by the system when they're needed to be physicalized, because otherwise they'll just be simulated flying around. Quanta will have their own desires, or at least stats attributed to them that influence what they do for jobs. How risk-averse they are, could they turn into pirates, miners, bounty hunters. It's all based on supply, demand, risk, and opportunity, as well as their personal tastes. Wages on planets, danger, the state of the economy, and much more can affect these individual quanta, but then at the scale of thousands or tens of thousands of them being tracked and simulated at once. These systems will drive the prices in the economy, which will in turn drive Quanta to do different jobs potentially and generate different missions and sort of affect their activity. Missions and service beacons will be generated based on the data and needs of the system to reflect what's going on in the verse. Dynamic events can be directly affected, triggered, and evolve based on Quanta and the state of the verse as well. Xenothreat, for example, could amass a force of pirates in the Pyro system and then attack the Stanton system if they're left for too long without like bounty hunters or forces keeping their numbers in check in Pyro. If a load of pirate players are doing a load of missions to help Xenothreat in Pyro, well, maybe they're much more likely to attack the Stanton system. So this would then trigger that Xenothreat event, but the outcome of what happens with Xenothreat would then be much more important and would actually affect the long term of how many pirates are in the Stanton system, how long they're there. This is going to have knock-on effects on the economy as fuel prices rise, along with ship repair costs and ammo as these items are used in ongoing fights. There's going to be loads of missions generated for bounty hunters and players to deal with the Xenothreat forces, not just in the Stanton system, but if there's any fallout beyond that, they're going to have to go to the Pyro system to go deal with them there as well. Medical supplies might be very valuable, but conversely, very dangerous to bring in. Cloud Imperium have been testing these things sort of more in isolation and manually over the last few quarters, but things like Jumptown, like the Ninetales Lockdown, like Xenothreat, they're all sort of steps towards something more dynamic and tastes of that. For me, the Dynamic Universe Sim and Quanta start to bring all of the important elements together of the economy, mission generation, and, well, adventure, things to do in the verse. It will start to drive gameplay and allow for a constant stream of content to participate in. At least eventually, that's the goal. But eventually, when it focuses more on the economy, you're going to have the economies being mined, sort of like those raw materials that are being mined and refined. They're going to be needed to be moved elsewhere to be then turned into goods or different types of material. And then you'll have missions and NPCs moving these goods around to then be made into other commodities, items, ships, weapons, all that sort of jazz. And that's going to affect the price and the stock of individual shops. Lose a ship, that will have to be replaced, as well as the weapons and ammo that you're constantly using. Too many pirates around an area, well, you might not be getting supplies through to a planet, and that might actually run low on certain goods, and prices might skyrocket. The potentials for Star Citizen and this system are fantastic, and it is truly needed to make it into a MMO and an interesting economy, an interesting game. The opportunities for cargo hauling based on the changing universe are pretty exciting for me. But then you have to think about escorts and how all these things knock on with each other. It's all of those systems being interconnected and affecting each other. It's not just a simulation of those NPCs, it's a full-blown economy, mission, and empire sim. Star Citizen very much still needs to build on its AI and NPC physicalization and pathfinding on the sort of AI and NPC side, but there's still a load more work going into the Quanta system, the economy, mission systems, and expect to see and hear a lot more about these systems over the coming months. But Alpha 3.17, assuming it gets the implementation that Cloud Imperium have now said, that should be major steps forwards to the wider dynamic universe simulation. Anyway, what do you think? Are you excited to see this in Alpha 3.17, or is it actually relatively minor to you until it ties into more. Because I suppose you're not going to notice a lot of this back-end stuff unless you're actually specifically looking for it. And that's kind of good in some ways. Like, you want all of this to eventually be in the background, driving everything and giving you an interesting experience. I sort of do like the idea that I can do some clever things and sort of affect the way the game evolves. Obviously, there's going to be hundreds, thousands of players all affecting the story simultaneously, and those NPCs then also affecting the story with simulation. Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think Cloud Imperium could get away with a much more simple system? Because when you're talking about a dynamic universe at this scale, I mean, aren't you going to be able to track it to a level that makes it sort of like needed to have a dynamic universe at this level? What do you think? Do you like, yeah, I want super complex dynamic universe, or, well, actually just something a bit more gamified and fake is actually still fine, especially if it allows us to have a game quicker? To be honest, it is what I'm most excited for, the dynamic universe sim, this Quanta system, because it does represent everything coming together for me. But whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I am French and sophisticated. I am also French and also sophisticated. Let us go on a date. Neither of these people are French or sophisticated. It was me doing a funny voice, as well as showing the horrors of dating online and what happens if you accidentally catfish yourself with 2 of your own accounts. But French people don't talk like that even. No one does. NordVPN can make you appear to be in France, but it doesn't make you French, as I've now found out. It can be used to improve security or give you more accessibility to the internet. I can watch all my favourite shows. Get yourself NordVPN today in the links below and maybe be a better version of yourself. Now that's shilling for you. Every month we have a Star Citizen ship giveaway, and March is no different. We have a Crusader Industries Mercury Star Runner. This multi-crew, multi-role, cargo and data running ship is my favourite ship in the game. It has loads of little smuggling holes. It's got a good amount of armament. It can do a little bit of everything in the game at the moment. To be in for a chance of winning it, just comment on any of my videos made during March. More details in the description below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and potentially even clicking that join button under my videos to help further support the channel. Share the videos around with your friends and family. You'll occasionally get exclusive videos, posts, and polls that help influence the channel, along with emotes and badges to show your support. It really does help. There's also a Patreon and direct donations tool for those inclined. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you have a great March 2022!